What?
Madonna.
Is that a thing?
The Duel of the Fates.
Oh.
I remember Janelle was so mad because for like a month straight, it was like on TRL.
Oh.
Because it was just like an orchestra and like shots of the film. And she was like, what the crap is this?
I'm on Janelle's team. What the crap is this indeed?
Hello, everybody. I am Will.
And I'm Kristin.
And this is So I'm Watching This Show, your new favorite pop culture YouTube channel where we talk about movies, TV, music, and more. And as always, this is a spoiler show, so you have been warned. On today's episode, we are going to have a conversation. I know what you're thinking. That's usually what you do. But this is, I think, going to be not different, but we're going to have a conversation about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. The reason why I prefaced it that way is because there's not a single thing that we could say that would be new or hot or unique or whatever.
But Obi-Wan is about to come out, and so we're like, I've never actually finished the OG, or not the OG, but like the prequel trilogy.
So she had technically never seen them, and we started this back when we were a podcast, and she watched the first one, and we got about halfway through the second one.
We got to the mind-bending scene where Padme walks out onto the balcony and Anakin is there, and then she turns around to walk away, and then he sees her, and then she turns back around and they have a weird conversation, and then she leaves. And I literally couldn't get past it. We just talked about that scene for the next hour, and then I had to go to bed.
It's in episode 2, so stay tuned. I was 13 when this movie came out, so I have lots to say in different ways and about different things. So I think this is going to be more of a like nostalgia kind of conversation, you know.
For you.
Well, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. A pretty metal title, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Like,
although I was reading the trivia, and apparently I, along with everyone else, thought it referred to Darth Maul, and it in fact refers to Senator Palpatine, is the Phantom Menace.
I mean, I think it works on two levels.
Okay, but not according to George Lucas.
Shh. Because there's the line at the end where they're like, there's always two. Which one did we defeat? So it makes more sense if it works on two levels. Okay. I genuinely, I don't know where to start. I was 13 when this came out. At the time, I was obsessed with Star Wars. I'm a much more casual fan now. I grew out of it to a certain extent. I like a little bit more sex in my media.
Fair. Also, I think we should just play that Freddie Prinze Jr. Rant in its entirety at some point in this episode. He goes off when they're talking about the newest trilogy.
Look, dog, you're just mad the franchise isn't aging with you.
Right.
But that ain't how it works. The first one was for fucking kids.
Right. Yep.
The second 3 were for different fucking kids. And this one is for kids. You're just pissed off that Han Solo gave the fucking Millennium Falcon to a girl.
Yeah.
That's it. Because Luke Skywalker's Cinderella. Or Sleeping Beauty, okay? He can talk to things that don't speak English and understands what they're fucking saying. He gets a fairy godfather instead of a fairy godmother who teaches him how to be the best Jedi in the world in no time fucking flat.
Because, like, I feel so much of that energy from, like, people who are obsessed with Star Wars, and that's why I can't let myself be obsessed with it. I have to be a casual fan because I can't be involved, and it's so toxic.
Well, it's also like a way of life. It became so massive in this just, I mean, unprecedented way, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm on the spot here, but like I said, I was 13. I was 13 when this came out. I was just at the perfect age. I remember, like, my mom took us out of school early to go to the movie theater because it was a huge deal. I remember, and my brother's 3 years younger, so he would have been 9 or 10.
Yeah.
We thought Jar Jar was funny.
My tongue is savage. My tongue, rabbit. Where is the rabbit? I'm stubborn.
Sure, I can see how as a 13-year-old, Jar Jar Binks is funny. And that is an instance where I do have to kind of then disagree with that Freddie Prinze Jr. rant, because, like, sure, this franchise isn't aging with the original fans, but Jar Jar Binks is alienating to adults. Like, it makes adults not want to sit through
Well, you
this.
pointed something out that I never really noticed, because, like I said, part of me watches this movie nostalgically, and I am definitely able to see that it is not very good as an adult. I frankly passed that barometer when I was like 18. I was like, oh,
this is actually
this
bad.
is not very good. But the weirdest thing about it, other than it being like, there's not, he's very gimmicky, he's very juvenile. It's catchphrases, it's like fart jokes and stuff. But the thing you pointed out that I never noticed was that all of his stuff exists in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Like, we will be following a scene and we will cut away for Jar Jar antics and come right back to the scene, and none of the characters acknowledge that that's happening.
Like, it was, I think they were on one of the ships traveling in between, and he was just like, or maybe they were just like at dinner.
It was at dinner in
At
Tatooine's
Shmi
at Shmi's house.
and Anakin's house, and he was just like acting foolish, but it keeps cutting for reaction shots to the other actors, but Jar Jar Binks is not there. Maybe Ahmed Best was there, but Jar Jar Binks is not there. And so I don't think they were told to react to anything. And yet they're cutting to reaction shots. And the only reaction to Jar Jar Binks that we get is Qui-Gon Jinn catching his tongue when he goes to stick it out and grab something again. And I'm sort of like, why are you insisting on these reaction shots? It's literally Natalie Portman with a straight face. And even Jake Lloyd,
There's so many shots in this movie that is characters with blank faces stating motivations to each other.
It's awful.
Our take with George Lucas is that he's an excellent creative mind.
Yeah.
Like, he comes up with really cool things and ideas and premises and the like. But he's not a good screenwriter and he's not a good director.
Exactly.
I think it's why there's the famous, Empire Strikes Back is better than A New Hope, is because he wrote and directed A New Hope. He only wrote on Empire and Jedi. There were other writers and other directors that came in and did stuff. And so I think on a subconscious level, plus the first A New Hope was largely kind of filmed not guerrilla style, but they had pennies.
Sure.
Like, it's like some of those shots of the Death Star are like styrofoam and Dixie cups spray painted. Like, and it worked.
Oh, it does work. And that's not to say that I could, because if I'm being honest, of all the ones that he's written and or directed, I think A New Hope is the best so far. I've heard that the third of the middle trilogy, like episode 3, is like pretty good, is what I've heard. But he needs and has always needed someone to rein him in, because he also, I understand that he is the god of this universe, but like, just stop.
Well, because also he had his back against the wall with A New Hope.
Yeah.
They didn't have money. They didn't have the power. he didn't have all of this stuff. So he was having to make do in a way that, like.
And to further that, this is 20 years after, 22 years after the first one came out. And it's sort of like, he finally had the keys to the candy shop and he just ate all of it. You know what I mean? It's just like,
because these are independent films.
Well, these 3 aren't. These 3 are independent.
He financed.
Okay, but he had all that marketing money or merchandising money because they fucking blew it with his contract.
They had distribution, but they were bought. They're independent films.
Okay. Wow. So
there was no studio being like, this part isn't, like, he had total.
Okay, I didn't know that. It explains so much.
So
this is just a Lucasfilm movie?
I will take this moment to say that most of what I'm saying I believe is true. I'm going on 20 plus years of memories and reading things, so there's a chance maybe I made some of this stuff up and misremembering or misunderstanding, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. But
if that's true, it makes so much sense.
I was gonna say, does it not explain?
It explains everything, because without it's literally just Lucasfilm. Okay. Without someone else to be like, no, Frank Oz is still around. You don't need to CG Yoda. No, you don't need to blue screen all of this shit. Yes. Well, because weirdly also then they're filming in Caserta for a ton of stuff. And then there are other scenes where everything is fake. And I'm like, you don't still have like leftover sound stages from anything?
This is my opinions on the prequels are very mixed and varied. And I would, in the grand scheme of things, I would go as far as to say I have a positive thought about them, opinion about them. This is brand new, state-of-the-art technology
at the time.
And I have said I think that Hollywood owes George Lucas a credit, a service, because I think he got dirty, and he figured a lot of things out. Like, we learned from his mistakes. We learned from his, like,
yeah.
I think that the first pancake is always going to be a little bit, ooh.
Which I'll agree with, and I'll let that go. And it's I can't even be totally mad about the effects, because it's the thing we say all the time. We're like, at least the effects are consistent for the most part, but a lot of the stuff it just looks like a Windows 97 screensaver.
And there was an element of hubris. There was an element of, we can do this now. And it was like,
close to the sun.
In theory, we can. We haven't gotten there in practice. And so we watched this last night on Disney Plus. And I think any other time I had seen this, I think I was watching it on DVD.
They might have remastered it.
And so I was a little bit taken aback by how good I thought all of it looked. I mean, even the like Jar Jar and the Gungans and stuff. It's like, yes, it's very identifiably CG. It does look like a video game.
Yeah.
But like I said to you, it was like when you consider Mortal Kombat Annihilation came out a year and a half before this.
Well, also,
it's night and day.
It's the thing that it always gets compared to, perhaps wrongly, but Jurassic Park came out 5 years before this, and like those dinosaurs look pretty real.
I think they're on par, especially like because there are entire scenes where it's in the daylight. They're not even doing we got questionable CGI, so make it dark.
Yeah. The other thing too is, as I was reading, the IMDb trivia or whatever, he apparently approached like tons of people about writing and directing this.
Really?
And everybody turned him down. Everybody turned him down. And so I feel like I like that there was at least a little bit of self-awareness, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should pass this off to, because maybe he had that in his mind where he was like, the two others that I didn't, touch that much were way more, well received or whatever, but I wish someone had taken him up on it. I don't know. It's just kind of like, ugh.
It's unfortunate, but the whole thing is just leaden.
Yeah.
The plot.
So boring.
What is the plot of this movie?
So the Trade Federation is basically, I think, trying to...
Naboo is put taxes on things. So the Trade Federation is retaliating by cutting off trade.
I think they're trying to like take over Naboo somehow.
Because they're being financed by Palpatine, but it's like a shadow financer.
Well, so I don't know. Every time someone's talking about something that's like directly related to the plot, it's so boring.
It's monotone. You were trying so hard to watch this movie, and you just like, I mean, it was on and you watched it, but you literally got up to go to the bathroom and you're like, oh, I guess I should pause this.
Okay. Here's my biggest problem. Everybody in this movie is a decent actor. I guess we don't know about Jake Lloyd because this ruined his life. Everybody else in this movie is a good actor. We have proof of that in every other thing from their careers. It is astounding to me that every single person's performance in this movie is so flat. Everybody.
And it has that thing where it's like every shot has a second
too long
before and after.
Yeah.
You're a Jedi Knight, aren't you?
What makes you think that?
I saw your laser sword. Only Jedis carry that kind of weapon.
Perhaps I killed a Jedi and took it from him.
I don't think so. No one can kill a Jedi.
That drives me nuts. Like,
it's because, okay, I don't know why, and this goes back to my thing about how I don't think George Lucas should direct, and I don't really think he should. I mean, I assume with Lucasfilm being the only producer that he was in the editing bay as well for everything.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
There is a breathtaking documentary.
Oh, is there?
Where you can see the editors dying inside. You can see the light leaving their eyes. I'm sorry, I know I completely cut you off.
I hate it.
But he was trying to combine.
Yes.
He was taking clips from different takes and trying to sew them together in editing.
There apparently is like at least one shot of Jake Lloyd that is a composite of 2 different takes.
And in the documentary, you literally see him ask the editor, "Can you do that?" And the editor started to talk and he was like, "It's yes or no." And the editor was like, "Yes." And then he leaves and it cuts back to the editor and he was like,
if we can split one actor from one take and put him, resync him with everybody else, we're doing lots of that. That's, to me, I mean, it's fantastic you can do that, but it's opening up a whole world of, I mean, that just multiplies the number of decisions that you can make in a cut. Normally you reject whole shots because one thing is wrong.
Because it then starts to affect how George is directing scenes.
Yeah.
Because he's like, we can fix it in post. Like, we can composite it in post.
I truly believe that is what happened. I 100% believe that's what happened because it goes back to the Jar Jar Binks, not like nobody interacting with Jar Jar Binks kind of thing, where it's like every single time 2 people are having a conversation, it feels like they're
in different time zones,
different scenes. It's so bizarre. And it's like, I just believe someone could have got good performances out of every single one of these people. Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson and Natalie Portman, unbelievable.
So I think Liam and Ewan fare decently.
Okay, however, when they're on Tatooine, Ewan McGregor is by himself 100% of the time inside the ship just trying to fix shit or whatever. He is totally isolated from the rest of them the entire time. And every time he's just by himself in a room, like answering calls from Qui-Gon Jinn, just being like, yeah, okay, I'll just like, don't do that though. And it's nothing.
So there's
I love him. He's one of my favorite actors ever. And this is atrocious.
Well, that goes back to what we were saying with the plot. So it's like, so basically the Trade Federation
they're attacking Naboo.
Well, they've cut off, is the story. They've cut off trade, but they're also like shadow attacking them.
Yeah.
And so the queen, the 14-year-old queen, goes to the Senate to ask for help. And when they don't get it, she instills a vote of no confidence in the chancellor.
Sure. Chancellor sounds right.
We'll go with chancellor.
Because there's also a viceroy.
Uh-huh. Is it the viceroy? Shit. I don't remember which one. Terrence Stamp.
It doesn't matter.
Well, it's Terrence Stamp. But also, it's Senator Palpatine is the one who's manipulating her to do that.
Yeah.
Is that what this is about? Okay.
Yeah.
I always knew as a kid that he was the bad guy, but you can watch this movie and not follow any of it because it's so comic that you can tell who's the good guy and who's the bad guy in every scene.
Also, Terrence Stamp is Chancellor Valorum, and he hated working on this movie so much that he declined coming back for the next 2.
And there's so many weird, interesting ideas in this movie, and that was one thing that I've always defended. Like, I was defensive of the prequels for a long time. There's cool shit. Darth Maul is cool.
Of course.
Queen Amidala's wardrobe is cool.
Also, yeah.
Like, the world building, the places, the things, the creatures. I mean, that scene with them in the submarine with the crawfish monster and then the giant lizard otter monster. And it's like, it's so cool. And I said to you while we were watching the movie that I was like, there is a reason, a deliberate reason why Natalie Portman is speaking the way that she is. But they don't ever address it in the movie. I had one of those like CD-ROM or DVD-ROMs or whatever. And so I read a whole bunch of shit that never actually materializes in the movies. But it was basically, it's like they train the queens to speak that way because they don't want you to be able to get a grasp on who they are, on how old they are, on what they look like. They're meant to be sort of like phantom figureheads, or not phantom, but you know what I mean? Like,
that goes back to the other thing about George Lucas is and I feel like he just does this. I'm not as big a fan of Indiana Jones, so I'm going to talk out of my ass a little, but I think it's part of the issue that people had with the most recent Indiana Jones movie, where it's like, you don't have to have that much crazy shit backstory that only you know. You know what I mean? You don't have to have pages and pages and pages and pages of stuff that only you, the creator, know. You're allowed to put on screen what exists and like let people, but it's like, because then anytime there's like a fan theory, he can be like, actually it's XYZ. And it's just like, that takes all the fun out of it.
Well, again, I like that idea behind the queens, but it needs to be conveyed in some fashion. Like one of them needed to have a conversation with Padme about like, why is the queen so stilted, or why is she so, because this movie is littered with new people coming in that we have every opportunity to be explaining things. But they're just not really doing that either.
It's because the plot of this movie is Byzantine
but also
it's Byzantine and yet also too
stupid.
Like, well, to point A to point B only with nothing in between. But it's also just, it's senseless. It's boring. It's like nobody is watching. The first three movies are not about trade routes. It's about a fight between light and darkness. And so to like get so deep into the minutia of the bureaucracy of the universe in a not fun way, like something like Jupiter Ascending, in like a really broad, crazy way, it's not interesting.
So there is for me at least, there is another small elephant in the room, but it is the special edition versions of the first three movies. Again, I was like 10 and 11 when those were coming out. It was the coolest thing I could ever imagine. It blew my little brain doors clear off the hinges. I loved it so much, the concept of going back to a movie that I liked and making it cooler and shinier and longer and better. And for several years, I believed that. Yeah. And then as an adult, I'm like, this is awful. Yeah.
The Force Ghost, the like extra scene with Jabba the Hutt.
The Force Ghost is the least of it, but so for someone, so Rachel has never seen the original trilogy. So if we sat her down to watch it, she would be watching space opera Star Wars, and then it would grind to a halt for a 1990s musical number, CGI musical number, and then go back to 1970s Star Wars.
Yeah.
It is so jarring. It is so unhinged. It's so egregious that it's almost art. Like,
it's definitely art, but it's bad art. I think, and I guess I don't have 100% confirmation on this. I don't believe that you can watch the OG trilogies as they were released in the 70s right now. I don't think you can. I think that Jabba the Hutt scene is like in there forever, because I think what the rumor I heard is that he destroyed, like, the way he cut it to add the new stuff. The OG is destroyed.
So I don't know that. I'm sure we will find out if that's true within
minutes
and for the rest of eternity. If he wanted to do that as like a fun little aside or a fun little art project, like, here's what would have happened if I did it now.
But you can't take away the thing that people have always loved.
And for a long time, I was actually defensive, where I'm like, this is his world. He can do whatever he wants. And I don't know. I don't feel that way anymore. And it's not like going through and like erasing the Starbucks cup in Game of Thrones, like, because even that I'd be against, but it's not something innocuous like that. Like I said, it tonally
changes,
shatters the narrative and the momentum of the movie. And so I bring that up to say that whatever he was going through in the 90s, that weird sense of humor is all over these, especially this movie.
Yeah.
But the prequel trilogy, where it's like they're weird, slapsticky 90s cartoons in a way that the first trilogy is like mythology.
Yeah.
Is like a noble. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to oversell it because there's Ewoks and stuff, and I guess people hated the Ewoks when it happened.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't know. That's part of the problem with growing up with art, is that you have a hard time differentiating the nostalgia from the opinion and the yada yada. I do have a lot of fond memories of this material. The marketing, the merchandise, I told you when they released the action figures, there was like 72 action figures from this movie alone. There's not a character that walks across the stage that they don't have an action figure of. And so part of my love and enjoyment of it is the shit I was creating using these characters.
Yeah.
Like my parents used to have a water fountain in that little garden in the front, and I had it was a Gungan temple, and I did all of this stuff, and I just like I just loved the worlds, the places, the creatures, the wardrobe, the art. There's several art books about this, and it's like, if you think some of the stuff that you see is beautiful, you should see the drawings, like the actual concept art and stuff.
Well, that's something that I 100% agree with you on, is that like the world building in these, and like the wardrobe, like you said, Natalie Portman's stuff is like, it's great. That stuff's all great.
Well, even some of the characters managed to transcend, like, because you had mentioned to me that we're right on sort of a cusp where it's like younger millennials and into, I guess, younger millennials, I'm not sure, but you were like, people like 5 years younger than us actually just kind of love this.
Yeah.
They grew up with it unironically in a way that we were reckoning with it in real time. And I think characters like, Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi and Padme, and hell, even Hayden Christensen's Anakin. It's like, he's not very good in the two movies he's in, but something about it transcends.
Again, I can't blame him for that.
No.
I feel like it can't be his fault, because I've seen him in other stuff, and I think he's pretty great. And not for nothing, this ruined a couple of careers, and I think his is probably the one that had the most promise going into these movies, because Jake Lloyd's a little boy, and you don't actually see Ahmed Best's face. But
that poor guy,
I can't get into it,
because he only did what he was asked to do,
which is borderline.
Also,
it's not even borderline; it's pretty racist.
I didn't notice that when I was 13.
Yeah, it
was shocking last night when the two men, I forget their name. They should be seared in my mind. Newt Gunray. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, it's Newt Gunray. When they started speaking last night.
I knew it. They're here to force a settlement.
Distract them. I will contact Los Sirius.
I was like,
yeah.
It is so offensive. The Jar Jar Binks stuff is so offensive. It's so like,
it's not amazing. And I just I do feel bad, because you're right. He was not, I don't believe he was making that choice in the moment.
I certainly don't think it was intentional, but it was commented on, because I remember Mad TV did, I wonder if it's still funny. It was hilarious when I was 14. But Mad TV did a skit where I think it was Alex Borstein, and I think she was like Diane Sawyer or Jane Pauley. And she was going to Skywalker Ranch, and Will Sasso was George Lucas. And it was like she had been kidnapped by a madman. And he just acts like a child the whole time.
Yeah.
And he introduced a new character. It was Jar Jar Binks' aunt, and her name was Aunt Jar Jar Mima.
Check this out, Jane.
Oh, Lord, Mr. Obi-Wan! Lisa being chased in by ghosties!
Is this some kind of a joke?
Oh, no. This is a distant relative of Jar Jar Binks, Aunt Jar Jar Mima.
It do be like that, though.
If I can find a clip of it and I deem it worthy, we might drop a.
It's like it's really bad. So like in addition to being like silly and slapsticky and sort of stupid on the whole, it also is.
But only sometimes.
It also then just is so offensive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like not his performance, but the character of Jar Jar Binks. And in addition to that, he lifts right out, which is the most shocking part. That like, how do you put something that extra in your movie and then make it in such a way that it lifts right out?
Because
it's a wild.
So back to this documentary.
Maybe we should watch the documentary.
I did. I'll watch it, but it is soothsaying. There's just so many points where George Lucas is like, Jar Jar Binks is the heart of this film.
Jar Jar is a key to all this. If we get Jar Jar working, because he's a funnier character than we've ever had in any of the movies before.
And he was like, and how the audience reacts to Jar Jar Binks will make or break this franchise. I'm like, well,
how did you like? Were there no test screenings? Like,
I don't know. There's even a scene like where they're talking about
the heart of this movie. He doesn't even do any. Everything that he does that's helpful is by accident because he's messing something up to start with.
Mm-hmm. And there's even a scene where they're like, Natalie Portman hasn't signed on yet because they literally don't have scripts for her.
Yeah.
And one of the producers was like, we're asking this 14-year-old girl, this actress, to sign away the next 6 years of her career to us. Like, we need something to give her.
It's just it's such a
well, we got 2 more to watch.
We do. It's just such a baffling failure on like almost every level. And like even when we get to the point of things where like Padme is leading an incursion into the castle and we both are like, what? She's 14. She's the monarch of this planet. What is happening?
But I loved that when I was 14 myself.
Sure. It's just bizarre.
We also haven't mentioned Keira Knightley. Keira Knightley is
Sabe.
One of her is her like
decoy.
Yeah. And so there are several scenes where Keira is the queen. That's just fun. And you said also Sofia Coppola.
She was one of the handmaidens at some point. One? Yeah, because she was starting to direct The Virgin Suicides, and Francis, her father, is friends with George Lucas, and so she was like, hey, can I come be on set to like see what's going on? And he was like, yeah, sure. And then she like got put in there. So it's cool. I'm into it. It's like whatever, but it's also
there's a few more things that we have to talk about. There is a pod race in this movie.
Okay.
At any given point, it's really neat.
Yeah.
But in its entirety, holy shit.
Evidently, it went on for so long that it was like a movie within a movie at a certain point, and they had to cut it. It's already 9 minutes long, even maybe longer.
I feel like that. Well, the entire sequence is like 22 minutes.
Okay, then the actual race itself, I think, is like 9. It's.
I literally remember being in the theater and my grandmother being like, oh boy. Like she was sort of like, I don't know if I can keep watching this.
Yeah. I don't know. It's also like there's so many like just bits of trivia in here. Liam Neeson signed on to this movie. He was so pumped to sign on that he signed on without reading a script. And I wonder if once he read the script, he was like, oh no.
And again, like I said, I mean, it's like the elements of it are so cool. I like that we live in a world where pod racing is a thing in pop culture that can be referenced.
Yeah.
But it's very much a for what? Like when it's happening, it's like, what is this actually bringing to the story? So I never, ever had an opinion on midichlorians to the point where, because I don't remember if they even really come up again.
Okay. I
can't recall if they play a role in
don't know.
2 or 3.
I said it before, and I'll say it again. I have no issue with the general idea of midichlorians being a thing. What I take issue with is introducing them...
bringing the story to a halt to introduce this jargon.
4 movies into your franchise. And yes, this is before, but you can't 4 movies and 20 years later be like, actually, the reason why some people have the Force is because of something in their blood called midichlorians.
But I think it detracts from.
It's bad writing.
Like giving it like making it like a space gene makes it less interesting to me.
Well, to me, it also goes back to that Freddie Prinze Jr. thing that I was talking about, where he basically was like, the whole point of the Force is that it has to have balance. There has to be a balance. And so it's like, so you have these two evil things. So say, okay, great, there's two evil things. So now you make twins to balance out these two evil things, you know, two good twins to do this. And so to then have it be like the Force is putting midichlorians in people as opposed to just like
the Force
acting as like
going into people.
Yeah, as like God or something. It's like, I don't know. It makes,
I think it cheapens it.
It cheapens it. It makes less sense. It's just not as good. And again, like I said, had there been midichlorians from the beginning, then fine, whatever. But the fact that you're introducing them 4 movies and 20 years later, it's nothing.
Also, so watching this last night, I swear to God, it is the first time that I ever, and granted, I know I heard it, but it's the first time I ever registered that he was a virgin birth.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah.
That scene, because it's a little subtle, where
she just is like, he has no father. I birthed him and this and that.
I carried him, I birthed him.
Yeah, but at no point does she say, I was never with a man. She just says he has no father.
And so watching it last night, I was like,
oh yeah, Anakin is like space Jesus. As is Luke.
That's also a fundamental misunderstanding as to what Jesus is.
Well, I mean,
I suppose. I don't know.
In this sense, he is space Jesus in this movie. Once begins his downturn, he's obviously not. But
I did love when Jesus destroyed Mary Magdalene's hometown. That was one of my favorite.
Oi!
I don't know. I don't know. I have a very, very shaky truce with the concept of a prophecy in genre. I think there's ways it can be done well. I think Harry Potter is a version of a way it's done very well.
Sure.
You know, we've talked about before that I have my own book. We did this book, Fairy Tale. There's a prophecy in it. So, I mean, call me a hypocrite, but there's something about it in this movie where it's like, it's not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, Qui-Gon Jinn is like, this kid Anakin has a shit ton of midichlorians in his blood, like so many
more than Yoda.
And I think I need to train him. And then Mace Windu, who always the right choice. He's one of the few people that comes out of this movie unscathed.
Just smelling like a rose.
The Gina Gershon of the Star Wars universe. He's like, oh, you mean like in the prophecy? And it was like, we didn't need that.
No.
The midichlorians were enough. It was like, okay, yeah, that checks. I don't need.
Well, and it's also just the Force again. It's like, we don't need midichlorians. We don't need a prophecy. It's just the Force creating balance in the universe. That's literally.
Well, because then your husband was like, this movie, all they do is talk about the need for balance in the universe. And he's like, and there's no actual divide. He was like,
oh yeah.
I was like, well, because I mean, there's Darth Maul.
Yeah.
And then we know Senator Palpatine, but for the most part, everybody's just good and things are going according to plan.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's not enough evil people to balance out how many good Jedis there are.
Yeah.
Jedi, sorry, I'm not that big a fan. Oh, I don't know if it's plural. I don't know what the plural of Jedi is.
Coles to sack.
Yeah. Jedi.
I love it. Change approved. I love her shiny, the designs, the ships, the yellow ship with the pointy tail. There's like so many things that I actually think are great. I love Naboo. Mm-hmm. I love the capital Theed. I loved the decision to film in Caserta. I love Captain, was it Penka?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I thought he was
or Panaka.
Panaka. Yeah. He's certainly a appealing character. I don't know that he actually really does anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest sin, is just the actual lack of anything happening, and the things that do happen are like hijinks. It's like Anakin like, oh no, the ship's flying, and like
and again, I can recognize that, sure, if this is meant for kids, then fine. But the best children's movies can also be enjoyed by adults. And this is very difficult to enjoy.
I hate Shibulba. I find him so unappealing.
Wait, that's the other one. That's the other pod racer. Do you mean Watto, the one that owns Anakin?
I liked Shibulba. I hate Watto.
Yeah.
I liked Shibulba.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Well, because this also here says some naturalists have stated that Watto's wings weren't big enough to lift his body in flight.
I thought that.
What about a bumblebee?
Well, we don't understand how bumblebees
Sure,
work.
fine. Don't worry, though. Just George Lucas says that his digestive system is filled with helium.
But see, you needed to work that in there because now I think it's great. I'm totally on board. Of course, that makes so much sense. I don't know because that was another one that really clobbered me sideways. And granted, we are in a time period right now.
Yeah.
But
as we usually are,
we're in a particular one. And so when they were talking about slaves in this movie, I was like, oh, oh God, not a good enough,
not a good enough reason. Yeah.
I love Darth Maul. I always have, but that's another thing that you brought up where you were like, so wait a minute, you asked, because he's not even really introduced until the halfway point. What does he have? 2 scenes?
Yeah.
And you were like, doesn't he die in this movie? And I was like, yeah. And you were like,
it's such a waste.
What a cool dynamic character. Because we were talking about it a little bit. I was like, I always fucking loved Darth Maul. And I was like, I think it's because he looks like he fucks.
Yeah, he does. I agree with that for sure. I feel like I was reading something and he said specifically that originally he just fell down the pit. But George Lucas didn't like that because he was like, people are just going to think he can come back whenever. And I don't like that. He has to be dead for good. And so he got sliced in half. And I'm just like.
And also, he's not dead for good.
It just doesn't make any sense. It simply doesn't make sense. And I think that's what's so irritating. I don't remember where it was now. Anyway, it basically was like he did it on. It's sort of. It reminded me so much of when what's her face from Jurassic World gets eaten, and it's like, we just wanted to do it, finally kill a woman in this movie, and it's like, we just gotta kill the villain in this movie, and you gotta do it so he can't ever come back. And I'm like, why though? He's like one of the most interesting characters that you have. And he's barely in it. And maybe that's why. Maybe it's just that he's mysterious and I don't know anything about him. So I find him more captivating. I have no idea.
That could be half of it. Oh God, Sally Hawkins made her screen debut as an uncredited villager.
Yeah, she was in drama school. She's an extra.
I feel like there's more. I'm a little fatigued because it is a little bit of a roller coaster for me. Because like I said, part of me, it brought me joy at 13. And facets of it, elements of it still do. I love the end where there's the joyful music and the parade, and
it ends so abruptly.
That is a Star Wars special, though.
I guess, but it feels like we don't even get enough of like the pomp and circumstance of the moment, and then it's just like cut, directed by George Lucas, and it's like, whoa.
I think that we'll probably wait until we're done with all 3 of them, but I think we're going to do a separate video where we rank Padme's dresses.
Yep, I'll do that.
So let us know if you want that and be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, I think we'll probably do it even if you don't want it. So
this isn't about you.
Don't bother.
So yeah, Greg Proops, Fode and Bede.
That's the last thing I'll say. Is one of the bigger things that baffles me as well is how it's like relatively timeless. The style, the like visual styles are relatively timeless until you get something like Jar Jar Binks, who is like of the moment entirely. Or in the second one, I know there's like a 1950s diner, which is so bizarre. And then the like pod racer announcers who are like a 2-headed thing acting like
sportscasters.
Like 1940s Earth America baseball announcers. I don't get it. Because if this is a long time ago in a galaxy far away, how did this happen? Like, how is that an aesthetic?
Let us know what you think. Let us know if you have fun. I'm more interested in the people who like it.
Who have fond memories, yeah.
Because we're up to here with takes on how it's bad. That I got. We did it ourselves.
Yeah.
But if you like this, I want to know who you are. I want to know your history with it. Why? Like, just give me some, how old were you?
Yeah.
Do you still like it? Like, I want to know from you. So let us know if you're one of the people who likes this.
I agree. Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, you can follow us on Twitter at So I'm Watching or Instagram at So I'm Watching This Show. Our website's back up, soimwatching.com. And then, just, support if you want. And let us know what you think. And like and subscribe.